The quarterback market takes another turn thanks to a new signing in the SEC. The latest updates from the transfer portal. 5 stars best fits. Sure, they might like your school's facilities, but how well do they fit in scheme-wise? And our first ever installment of Recruit of the Weekend. Who gets the honor? It's all coming up on the College Football Recruiting Show starting right now. Hey everybody, welcome into the College Football Recruiting Show. I'm Grace Remington with Blair Angulo. And just because you got to fill an anchor today does not mean I'm letting you off the hook. You guys know the drill. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're answering viewer questions at the end of this stream. And the only way in is to subscribe. So go ahead and do that right now. All right, Blair, let's get to the top storylines of the day. 5-star wide receiver and Ohio State commit Jeremiah Smith has scheduled an official visit to Florida on June 2nd. The top wide receiver in the 2024 cycle has been committed to Ohio State since December, but visited Florida during the spring. Blair, how worried should Buckeye fans be?
The panic-o-meter probably moves up a smidge. Ohio State fans have been wondering about this recruitment for such a long time. It feels like ever since he committed. But Jeremiah Smith has been adamant that he's firm on that pledge. The window now, though, appears to be slightly ajar, and Florida will get a chance to pull off the flip this summer.
And our Steve Wiltfong will have more insight on Jeremiah Smith in just a minute. 4-star running back Jason Brown has locked in an official visit to Michigan State on June 23rd. That's according to our Brandon Huffman. Brown is the number 3 running back in the nation and top player in the state of Washington. Blair, what kind of player is Mel Tucker fighting for here?
A smaller scat back with plenty of speed and agility. We like his abilities in the open field, his quickness to shoot through the gaps and attack the second level. So all in all, it's a really good and well-rounded running back that would be tailor-made for what Michigan State likes to offensively.
USC landed a pair of brothers yesterday. Alabama transfer quarterback Traquan Fagans committed to the Trojans. And then younger brother Anquan, the top safety in the 2025 class, made his pledge. How important are these additions to USC's defense now and in the future?
We talk a lot on this show about USC's need to add defensive talent. We know that Lincoln Riley will be able to recruit on the offensive side of the ball. So the Fagans brothers are a great 1-2 punch here to add a ready-made player via the portal this year and then tack on a top 24/7 through 25 prospect that can help you down the road.
Michigan State transfer quarterback Payton Thorne announced his commitment to Auburn this weekend. Thorne had been the Spartans' starter the last 2 seasons, but entered the portal on April 30th, the final day of the spring window. We'll have more on Thorne's announcement and other transfer portal news later on in the show. And now let's hear a little bit more from our guy, Steve Wiltfong. And for more on the pulse of recruiting around the nation, let's bring in our director of recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, we mentioned at the top of the show, 5-star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith has an official visit scheduled to Florida. He also has an OV scheduled to Ohio State, where he's currently committed. So how worried should the Buckeye faithful be about this Florida trip, and what's his recruitment look like moving forward?
Yeah, traded some messages with Jeremiah over the weekend, talked to some other sources with knowledge of the recruitment. Look, this is a return visit to Florida, so the Gators have to be excited about getting the number 1 receiver in the country back to campus. He's hit it off with DJ Lagway, who told me earlier this spring, the composite 5-star quarterback committed to the Gators, that he thought that UF was in the thick of it for Jeremiah Smith, and he felt good about Florida's chances. But I'll continue to say, until someone tells me differently, it is very hard to flip a receiver from Ohio State, not only because of the track record of player development at the position by Brian Hartline, and not only because of the offense that Ryan Day and his staff boast every year as one of the most explosive attacks in college football, but that Brian Hartline builds such meaningful relationships with his top targets him and Jeremiah Smith and Jeremiah Smith's family, they're in sync right now. They have a great rapport. There's a lot of trust and belief that Jeremiah can be the player that he wants to be at Ohio State, that's the next best step for him. I think it's going to be hard for Florida and any other program to flip him, but the Gators are obviously a program he continues to look at, and they'll get the first official visit June 2nd.
All right, we'll stick to five-star prospects here. Edge Jamonta Waller has several suitors fighting for him. Penn State, Ole Miss, Florida, just to name a few. What's the latest on his recruitment?
Well, I think you named the key ones right there. I think that Penn State is the program to beat going into these official visits. He loved his trip to Happy Valley earlier this calendar year. Linebacker U in his mind. Penn State views him as a second-level defender for them, a guy that can be versatile within a defense that Waller sees as one of the best in college football year in and year out under Coach Franklin. But the program that I'm watching that I think has the opportunity to make the biggest move coming into these officials is Florida. He's enjoyed his time in Gainesville, has really clicked with Coach Armstrong and Coach Peterson and that staff, and it's got some friends committed to the Gators right now, and the trajectory of that program and location being in SEC country already. I think that Florida's a program I could easily see them grabbing the momentum as he goes through these official visits. Florida's locked in for June 16. Penn State's the week before June 9th. I'm not discounting Auburn, Georgia, or Texas A&M. I just like where Penn State stands with Florida as the biggest challenger to the Nittany Lions lead going into these 5 officials.
And while Florida is trying to flip Jeremiah Smith, they did just land another receiver in 2024 in-state prospect Isaiah Williams out of Carrollwood Day in Tampa. What have Billy Napier and staff added with this commitment?
Well, one of the positions of need that I think Billy Napier and his staff locked in on when they got to Gainesville was receiver. How can we get more explosive and get more big play guys at that position? And they instantly went into the portal when they got there. Receiver, thought they addressed some needs last cycle with some big time guys. And then here's Isaiah Williams in the fold. He's a fast, explosive athlete that Florida saw work out on Tuesday, committed him 3 days later. Now he's been injured, broke his collarbone as a junior, but we know he's a 4.4 guy, sub-11 speed in the 100-meter dash, an explosive jumps guy. Again, they saw him work out. He's got NFL pedigree. His father, Melvin, was drafted by the Saints. And so there's a lot to like about Isaiah Williams and his trajectory at the position.
And Florida also in the running for 2 defensive linemen. That's 5-star David Stone and 4-star LJ McCray. They have almost 40 offers each. So what's the latest in the Gators' pursuit of this duo?
Well, they just had 5-star defensive lineman David Stone on campus. Our Blake Alderman caught up with him, and Stone had a really good visit. Look, they're trying to make a move on Oregon, trying to make a move on Cristobal favorite Oklahoma. Miami's gotten them to campus a couple times here this calendar year as well. But sounds like Florida's positioned themselves well for an official visit down the road. And then LJ McCray is a guy that's a major in-state target for Florida too. Him and his Daytona Beach mainland teammate Xavier Mincy, one of the top safeties in the land. And look, we talked about Billy Napier and the emphasis on receiver. There's also been a major emphasis on defensive line. And the Gators signed one of the best defensive line classes in the SEC last year. You know what that means, Grace?
What's it mean, Steve?
It means it was one of the best defensive line classes in the country as well. And they want to do that again this cycle. LJ McCray is a major target for them. DeAndre Robinson, I think Florida leads for him going into his official visit in early June. And then another guy that Florida absolutely loves out of the state of Georgia, Nasir Johnson out of Dublin High there. He is a guy that they've absolutely prioritized right now. And if you ask Florida defensive line coach Sean Spencer, hey, you can take McCray, you can take Robinson, and you can take Johnson and shut it down right there. I think they'd be extremely ecstatic with those 3. And then they're certainly going big game hunting beyond that. We talked about David Stone. They're in the mix for Kyle Simmons, 5-star that visited this spring, going to come back with his mom for an official. They're swinging at Jordan Ross. They're trying to flip Dalen Evans from Texas A&M. Obviously have a good shot at local guy Kendall Jackson, but Florida in prime position for another special defensive line class, and they're trying to put together a great receiver class. TJ Moore is another guy that I think they're in a good spot for next to Williams.
All right, well, we'll stay in the SEC in these D-line classes with Tennessee. Kellen Lindstrom, the 3rd D-lineman Josh Heupel adds to his top 10 class, beating Oklahoma, among others, for his commitment. What are the Vols getting in Lindstrom?
He's 6'6", 235 pounds, obviously a big frame with twitch. He's got strong hands at the point of attack. He's physical up front. He's got a lot of upside with his potential, and I think he's going to bring a lot of versatility to that front with what he could grow into.
The Vols also big players for a couple of five-star prospects, D lineman Williams Nwaneri and wide receiver Mike Matthews. Where does Tennessee sit with them?
Well, you look at the programs that Tennessee beat out for Kellen Lindstrom. They're going against all those heavyweights for guys like Williams Nwaneri, Mike Matthews. And I think that Tennessee, when you look at the guys that are on their board, they have an absolute great chance to finish with a top 5 recruiting class. They're at number 9 right now. And as they head into the summer, I think they're the ones to beat for Williams Nwaneri right now. I think that they're at the top or near the top for Jordan Ross, Kamarion Franklin, Cameron Fountain. Those are also elite defensive linemen in this class. Those are 4 of the nation's best at the position, guys that can take a program from 12 wins to 14 wins. And I'd be shocked if Tennessee didn't land at least a couple of those guys. They're also bringing in 5-star edge Eliza Rushing for an official visit in June. So they're in on the right guys at the position. A couple more guys I like Tennessee for right now. Edwin Spillman at linebacker, Boo Carter at defensive back, 2 coveted in-state guys. Boo Carter's fresh off that visit to Colorado where the Buffaloes grabbed some momentum, but I'm still sticking with Tennessee there. And then Mike Matthews. He's the two-way blue chipper, guy that Tennessee loves at receiver. Tennessee near the top for him. Clemson and USC, 2 other mainstays for Mike Matthews. Alabama's recruiting him as a two-way guy, so that's intriguing for him. Georgia rounding out the top 5 there, but I think Tennessee's in excellent position for Mike Matthews as well.
All right, let's talk Colorado. And as we know, most of the storylines around the Buffs have been the magnitude of their work in the transfer portal. But quarterback commit Danny O'Neal, the headliner of the 2024 recruiting class, and Steve, you recently got to see him at Cathedral High School in Indy. How is he helping Coach Prime build what he hopes turns into a top 25 class?
Well, he's a guy that's in the middle of it, trying to help recruit some of Tennessee or Colorado's top target. You know, he's Styles Prescott, a 4-star offensive lineman from Indianapolis area. Colorado offensive coordinator Sean Lewis was in the Indy area last week, saw Danny O'Neal, saw Styles Prescott. He's recruiting him. He's trying to recruit a Marion Stewart, trying to recruit Aaron Butler, Bronte Johnson, Amari Jefferson, Cam Michael, a few others. And watching him throw the football, this is one of the most accurate throwers of the football in the country. This is a guy that's going to come in immediately at Colorado and push that quarterback room led by Shedeur Sanders. The guy that's won a state championship on the high school level. I see the velocity and arm strength going up in Danny O'Neal every time I see him. He's always been accurate with the football, and he can also make things happen with his legs. High IQ guy, sees the field well. Big pickup for Colorado. He's one of their top guys at the position, and he showed why in that workout this week.
All right, and last one for you here. We got to cover some Big Ten. Iowa has a top 15 class, and you just put in a crystal ball, Steve, for them to land offensive tackle Will Nolan out of Arlington Heights, Indiana. Why do you have him leaning toward the Hawkeyes?
Well, he's visiting campus again this week and talking to sources with knowledge of that recruitment. Iowa looks like the team to beat, and wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the next guys in the fold. Our scouting department really likes him, number 22 offensive tackle in the country nationally. And this Iowa class is really loaded up on in-state talent. Right now, they have 6 of the top 7 players in the state committed. The guy that they covet moving forward, top 247 offensive tackle Grant Brix. He's the number 1 player in the state. Every program in the country is knocking on his door. It'll be full speed ahead for the Hawkeyes moving forward on guys like Grant Brix, cornerback Jalen Todd, who I think they lead for, receiver Patrick Clax out of Indiana, who I think the Hawkeyes are also the team to beat for. They're going to be tough to beat for KJ Parker and Eric Carner out of Immaculate Conception in Illinois. And they're also extremely high on former Wisconsin commit Austin Alexander from Illinois as well. So Iowa, no slowing down right now. Nolan and Grant Brix, 2 major targets at a position where we've seen Iowa churn them out year in and year out.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. The best recruiting intel out there, and you can only get it here with Steve Wiltfong on 24/7 Sports. Thanks for your time, Steve. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Jump in the chat, send us your questions, throw us a like on this stream. You don't want to miss any of our great content here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. And by the way, thanks to all of you. We already have over 5 million views on the channel just this month. We would love for you to be a part of the next 5 million views. Now let's talk some transfer portal. So let's bring in our expert and national college football writer, my guy, Chris Hummer. Great to see you again. We'll start with Payton Thorne's commitment to Hugh Freeze. We mentioned earlier he'll be competing with starter Robbie Ashford, who has some experience there, Redford freshman Holden Gariner for the starting spot. How does his addition impact the quarterback room down on the Plains?
Auburn added Payton Thorne for a reason. They need a guy. They've been looking for a guy the entire offseason. They swung and missed on a couple guys in the winter window. I can think of somebody like Devin Leary, Grayson McCall didn't work out, but they finally got their dude in Payton Thorne, and I expect him to start. He's a big upgrade to the quarterback room, multiple-year starter, an experienced guy for a quarterback room that really lacked it last year. Robbie Ashford, who has a really high ceiling, can get better, but he still finished last in the SEC last year in terms of adjusting completion percentage. Auburn's offense ranked 117th nationally in passing yards per game. It was a mess. Payton Thorne helped stabilize everything for Auburn. There's a reason they targeted him in the portal. He is a person who ranked 32nd nationally in QBR last year. He takes care of the football. He puts the team in the right spots. It's going to be a huge upgrade for Hugh Freeze, who has done a lot with probably worse options at quarterback in his past than somebody like Payton Thorne.
Speaking of Big Ten transfer quarterbacks, Chris, obviously Casey Thompson is one, and Auburn appear to be in the mix there now with Payton Thorne in the fold. What's next for the former Longhorn and Cornhusker in Casey Thompson?
Something pretty familiar for Casey Thompson. He's heading to FAU on Tuesday for an official visit. FAU is obviously coached by Tom Herman, who was Casey Thompson's initial head coach when he started his career at Texas. I don't know if everybody remembers, but Casey Thompson blew onto the scene in 2020 in the Alamo Bowl when he was flawless in kind of garbage time in replacement of Sam Ehlinger. Everybody kind of marked Casey Thompson as the next dude for Texas at that point. And Tom Herman was still the head coach for Texas during that bowl game. Steve Sarkisian came in. Casey Thompson got hurt. His career kind of diverged from there. But they have a chance to get back together with Casey visiting on Tuesday. I really like where the Owls sit. FAU returns more returning production than any team in the group of five next year. All they're missing is an impact starting quarterback, and I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides if Casey were to reunite with a familiar face and go to FAU, start right away, and potentially put together a healthy season and put his name back out there on the NFL radar.
Before we get this next question in, everybody, you know what I'm going to ask? Like this stream right now and throw your questions in the chat, okay? Because we're going to get to those at the end of the show. All right, Chris, staying on the quarterbacks here, Maalik Murphy received quite a few looks after his breakout spring game in Austin, and you just wrote a great story. Everybody go read it on the website about why Murphy decided to stay at Texas despite the logjam of quarterbacks on the roster. Chris, how important was it for Steve Sarkisian to keep Murphy for at least one more season?
It's huge. People remember last year, Quinn Ewers got hurt against Alabama in week 2. Hudson Card came in and did a really able job after that. Texas went 2-2 in that stretch, but they lost by one possession to Texas Tech and Alabama. Texas could have easily been 4-0 with Hudson Card under center. And if they didn't have Hudson Card, or if this year they didn't have Maalik Murphy, they would be relying on somebody like a true freshman, Arch Manning, who is obviously really ballyhooed as a recruit, but is coming from very small school classification football in Louisiana. I think he's somebody that could use some time this season on the bench. And Maalik Murphy is about as high a ceiling as a backup as there is in the country. I think keeping Maalik is huge for Texas, not only for this year, but moving forward in the future too. I think an ideal scenario for Texas would be Quinn Ewers starts in 2023, goes to the NFL. Maalik Murphy maybe starts in 2024, goes to the NFL. And then Arch Manning takes over as a redshirt sophomore in 2025. Quarterback rooms don't always work out like that. The best plans often go by the wayside when you're talking about quarterback recruiting and quarterback management. But Maalik Murphy has that type of talent to stay at Texas and eventually start. So it's huge for them to keep him in the fold.
A really interesting dynamic, and I remember Maalik Murphy as a high schooler, he embraced that challenge. He knew that Steve Sarkisian was going to draw the top quarterbacks in the country year in and year out. And obviously him staying in Austin is a clear indication that he's embracing that challenge. Chris, let's get into some of the top players on the list of best available. Running back Alton McCaskill, you liked Coach Prime to eventually land the Houston running back transfer. You put in that crystal ball for McCaskill to end up with the Buffaloes last month, but now a number of other schools have entered the mix. What's the latest with McCaskill?
I would still put my crystal ball in Colorado, but maybe a little less positive than I was a couple weeks ago when he first entered, when all the buzz was about Colorado. Alden McCaskill was 24/7 Sports reported visited Arizona State last week, and he was just on campus at Florida for an official visit. I've heard that Florida visit went really well. It'll be interesting to see how Alden McCaskill evaluates that running back room. Florida is loaded at the position. Arizona State and Colorado are a little bit more desperate for a impact running back like Alden McCaskill. I think this weekend's going to be key. He still has an official visit to Colorado if he wants to make it. I still hear good things about where Colorado sits, but if he doesn't show up on campus at Colorado this weekend, it could mean things are trending in the wrong direction for the Buffaloes in this recruitment.
Another popular name in the portal was Jalen Key, the safety transfer from UAB. Since entering the portal on April 24th, his process has really picked up, Chris, especially with some interest from FSU. What are you hearing about his transfer recruitment?
Jalen told me earlier today he's down to 3 schools, Florida State, Alabama, and Ole Miss. He'd originally been considering trips to Ohio State and Oregon this week. He's decided to narrow things down. He's at Alabama today, actually. It's his second visit to Alabama since he went in the portal. He was on campus for an unofficial when Tyler Buckner was on campus, actually, and Tyler Buckner eventually committed to the Tide. Alabama's the team entering the portal process, I heard, was in really good shape for Jalen Key. I think Alabama's still in excellent shape here, but Florida State has made a really hard push. I would turn Florida State and Alabama as the 2 teams to beat here. Both are offering a lot of playing time and obviously a step up to the Power 5 level in the ACC and the SEC. So it'll be interesting to see how that Alabama visit goes, but I like where Alabama and Florida State sit currently.
All right, one of the best in the biz right here, Chris Hummer. Thanks for your time. Thanks for all the insight. And for all of the best recruiting intel, make sure you purchase an annual VIP membership with us. You'll get the news before anybody else does. Make some friends on the message boards. That's always a fun time. And you can read some great feature stories too. Hold your phone up to the screen right now. It'll take you straight to our website where you can sign up. You'll also get access to Paramount Plus. Great dealer, guys. All right, we're going to go out to the West Coast now and talk some UCLA. For more on the Bruins perspective, let's bring in our expert, Brandon Huffman. Brandon, UCLA under Chip Kelly, at least, hasn't really been known for their prowess on the recruiting trail, choosing to build their roster more through the transfer portal. But do you sense a shift in philosophy now, focusing more on the more in high school recruiting? I think we might be having some technical difficulties right now but Blair, you're on the West Coast too. I see the UCLA helmet right behind you, so I assume you got some intel for us too. How do you see what's going on with the philosophy now with Chip Kelly and how they're building their program?
It's an interesting philosophy, and I think that's something that we're seeing Coach Prime at Colorado. He's rebuilding the program really quickly via the transfer portal, and I think that's what Chip Kelly originally intended when he got to UCLA. He needed to flip that roster. He needed to add more talent and get guys that were going to help his system and his scheme. Now that he has an identity, right, now that he's built that program up, I think it allows him now to really pinpoint it and choose the type of high school recruit that is going to add, obviously, the type of talent, the type of skill that he wants, not only on offense, but on defense. He has a formula that they're going after now. And I think now that they are winning some games, right, he's coming off his best season as the head coach at UCLA. It's giving him more to pitch. It's giving him more to sell to recruits. And then you factor in the move to the Big Ten. I think it's now a perfect time for UCLA to now focus on building from within, building high school prospects, being able to land players in the state of California and within the region, and then going out and getting a big-time five-star like Dante Moore in this last cycle couldn't have been a bad thing either for the UCLA Bruins.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Blair. Once these, new coaches get a little bit more established, they don't have to rely so heavily on that portal. They can start recruiting and building from the ground up. And it looks like we got Brandon Huffman back. I hope we do. Brandon, I'm going to ask you a question here. UCLA getting ready to move to the Big Ten in 2024. With the change in conferences, obviously comes a change in style of play. Do you see their recruiting philosophy, the type of player they're looking for, changing as well?
Yeah, I think they're, always trying to go physical, but maybe physical and athletic. And now there seems to be a bigger shift to focus to getting more physical players in the front seven on the offensive line. They've had their issues in recruiting offensive linemen, both under Justin Fry, who's now at Ohio State, and the early part of Tim Drevno. But two of their commitments in the 2024 class are offensive linemen. They also had, a couple of linebackers that were in town this week in 4 official visits in Braden Platt and Isaiah Patterson, 2 big physical linebackers. So you're seeing that it's not just about speed, which they have, but they're trying to add more guys in the trenches, more guys in that front seven to be able to withstand the physicality that the Big Ten is going to bring. They're trying to add more offensive linemen this year from the prep ranks that they can develop and maybe turn loose in year 2 or year 3 instead of having such a heavy reliance on the portal. So you're certainly seeing kind of their philosophy shift a little bit more in the high school ranks to get the more bigger and physical guys that they can develop and even get bigger and more stronger in their first couple years on campus.
Obviously, Chip Kelly does this, I think, better than anyone across the West Coast, and that's recruiting to a type of body and a type of athlete. He has a type, right? He has a player that he has in mind for a certain position, and he targets that player, whether that's a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. Usually it's a 3-star when it comes to UCLA. He's turned former FCS players into All-Americans. He's turned walk-ons into NFL draft picks. I mean, you can't really question the philosophy. And now that he's winning games, it's obviously giving them a little bit more ammo on the recruiting trail, Brandon. And last year, getting a Dante Moore was such a big win for Chip Kelly. How big of a role do you think that has in terms of the late flip on what they're able to do now in this next cycle and obviously selling the vision for what he wants in that program?
Well, Blair, shout out to your article about David Washington this morning, the 4-star receiver and the top 5 player in the state of Nevada. But he specifically cited the Dante Moore effect in both his recruitment as a receiver and both his recruitment just as a player. And I think that that's something that UCLA is really trying to sell. I mean, Dante Moore had a fabulous spring, didn't look like a true freshman for much of it. There's a lot of excitement about what he's going to do in Westwood. And we saw it 5 years ago when Dorian Thompson-Robinson came in. You had a transfer in Wilton Spate. He got injured early, but then they turned it over to Dorian, and he ran with it for the next 5 years. It won't be a surprise that Ethan Garbers is the starter when the season starts, but it wouldn't be a surprise that Dante Moore starting early in the season and never relinquishes that role. And I think receivers are going to look at that both in the transfer portal when the offseason happens, maybe the transfer portal immediately, but even after the 2023 season when they get a chance to see him. And I think that that's also going to help with high school recruitment. And that's why David Washington's glowing about that visit. A guy like Quasi Gilmer, a Southern California native who's got offers from all over the country, why he's interested in the Bruins, why you have other guys that don't even have a UCLA offer that covet one, that want to go to camp to try to audition for an offer because they know that they may have a chance to catch the ball from an elite guy who could be a top 10 pick in 3 years from now.
Brandon, linebacker Isaiah Patterson also took his official visit to UCLA. He and Braden Platt, teammates at Yelm High School. So Chip Kelly and staff trying to lock up this duo from the state of Washington. What did he say coming out of the visit, and where are the Bruins right now in his recruiting process?
I think UCLA is in a very good spot for Isaiah Patterson. They're the only one that has an official visit scheduled right now. I think there's a great opportunity for the Bruins to land him, and if they can get both him and Platt, the 2 teammates that helped their team win a state championship, that would be huge for that defensive philosophy we talked about with getting those big physical guys that can play in the front seven. When you talk about Patterson, and even Platt too, they both cited the fact that they're Seattle Seahawks fans. That's the NFL team in the Northwest that they root for. Well, their former defensive coordinator is Ken Norton Jr., the former UCLA star, the Super Bowl champion with the Cowboys and the 49ers, and now UCLA's linebackers coach who's recruiting both of them. He was by their campus in January, got both of them to take their first official visit to Westwood. Now, they're going to have to keep an eye on what Braden Platt does with official visits to Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Oregon, but they're in a really good spot for Patterson, and I would not be shocked in the least if they end up moving even more into the forefront to where he doesn't take official visits. That's the kind of impact that they had on Patterson this weekend, but they would love to go 2 for 2 with the 2 young linebackers.
Yeah, I love getting those package deals. All right, great stuff, Huff. Glad we could get you on here, and thanks for joining us. And remember, everybody, for more news and analysis on UCLA from Brandon and the entire staff, be sure to check out the team site, Bruin Report Online. State-of-the-art facilities, a coaching staff that feels like family, or a sweet NIL deal. Those are all nice, but sometimes a recruit's decision is only based on his fit on the field. Which school helps him reach his potential as an athlete, and which school gets him to the NFL. We're looking at top blue chippers and their place scheme-wise at Power 5 programs. This is 5-Star Fits. All right, and to help us do that, we got our national recruiting analyst, Cooper Petagna, joining us now as he and Blair break down some of these prospects. Cooper, we'll start with 5-star Dylan Stewart, the number 3 edge in the 2024 class and top player out of Washington, D.C. He's considering South Carolina, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and a few others, just a few. But which program there do you think gives him and his style of play the best fit?
Well, I'm going to go with the safe fit. I'm going to go with the University of Georgia, who's put 25 players in the NFL over the last 2 years. That is the most since the pre-draft era, or the common draft era, since 1967. And you look at what they do on the front seven, they have that recipe for success. Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart there. And you think about the guys that they've put out, Travon Walker, Nolan Smith, Michael Williams is going to be one of those guys here in the future. If you're Dylan Stewart and you're in his corner, how can you not want to go play for Kirby Smart in the University of Georgia? There's a lot of other really good fits out there. You talked about Alabama as well. You talked about South Carolina. I think Dylan Stewart can be a game changer, but if you're talking about Sunday potential and getting the best out of him, there's no better place to do that than Athens.
All right, Blair, this one's for you. On True or False on the show last week, you mentioned 5-star Elijah Rushing could leave the Pac-12 footprint to play college football. As the nation's top edge, he obviously has schools coast to coast fighting for his commitment, including Notre Dame, Arizona, Miami, Tennessee, Oregon, among others. Who do you think makes the most sense for him on the field?
For me, it has to be Notre Dame. There's an academic fit there. There's a personality fit as well. Off the field, the Fighting Irish check off a ton of boxes for Elijah Rushing. But then you dissect a little further and you look at what he can do on the field. They just had Isaiah Foskey drafted, and he's a player that I think has a lot of the similar traits that Elijah Rushing possesses. When Foskey was coming out of De La Salle in Northern California a couple years ago, you saw a lot of that versatility. He can do some stuff off the edge. He can do some stuff in a stand-up role. He's able to put his hand on the ground and be a really dynamic pass rusher that can use his speed and his power to get behind the line of scrimmage. And he's a player, Elijah Rushing, that has that opportunity to potentially make an impact from day one. He's the number 1 rated edge rusher in the class, according to 24/7 Sports. And he has, I think, all the tool set, the skill set that you want in a player that can get after the quarterback. It's a little bit tough to expect a true freshman to go in there and make an impact, but I think he has a lot of that makeup that could help the Fighting Irish right away. He has Tennessee, he has Oregon, he has Arizona. Schools like that are high up on his list, but I think Notre Dame, with what they were able to do with Foskey under Marcus Freeman, I think that gives them the upper hand right now.
All right, Cooper. Terry Bussey is the number 1 athlete and number 17 ranked player nationally. He recently released a top 11 that included LSU, Texas, Alabama, and Oklahoma. He's still considering a list of schools in the double digits there, so his recruitment, obviously, still some time to go. But where do you think he fits best?
Well, he's one of the most exciting and most dynamic players in all of the country. And this might be a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go with LSU. And the reason I'm going to go with the Bayou Bengals is because they have one of the best receiver rooms in the country right now. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., guy like Kyron Lacey as well, who the Tigers are looking to emerge this fall. And when you think about that, all those guys are upperclassmen, which means that LSU is going to have some NFL departures in that room, and that's where I think Terry Bussey fits. Jaden Daniels might be on his way out after this year. Actually, we know that. And a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, the gunslinger, who we got to see at times last season, could step into that starting quarterback role for LSU. So it's going to be a wide open offense. Sure, they got guys like Jaylen Brown, Shelton Sampson stepping in, but I think Terry Bussey is so dynamic, unique. He can help them in the return game as well. They don't have a guy like this on the inside that can take the top off a defense. A 4-sport athlete. He's a sub 1,100 meter guy. He's also a guy that had over 70 touchdowns last year, 2,000 yards rushing, 2,000 yards passing. He can do it all. So I like that fit at LSU. I might be a little bit biased. Obviously, I went to school there, but I like the fit for Brian Kelly.
Bias? No way. No, I like him continuing the tradition of electric wide receivers in the Bayou there. All right, Blair, one for you. Brandon Baker out of Mater Dei is the top offensive lineman in the country. He just picked up an offer from Alabama while also considering Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, and Georgia. Now, we know offensive line is a position that maybe takes a year or two to develop. So which school do you think will help him do that?
Give me the Michigan Wolverines. Cooper mentioned that he may be surprising some people by picking LSU for Bussey. This might be a surprise for some people. We get this question basically every week in the chat here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Brandon Baker, where is he going? Is he leaning Oregon? Is he leaning Georgia? What about the hometown school USC? Give me the Michigan Wolverines and give me their development up front, their offensive line group. They've had at least one offensive lineman drafted in each of the last 4 drafts. Coach Moore there doing a terrific job developing talent. And I think stylistically, I keep going back to that word, I think it's a perfect fit for what Brandon Baker can do. They run a lot of heavy set power stuff, and he's a really strong, nimble, athletic blocker that can get to the second level, is really balanced in terms of his pass protection, in terms of his run blocking. And then the added bonus of choosing a school like Michigan for him would be to potentially play the USCs and the UCLAs, the new Big Ten members here in a couple of years, and allow him to, hopefully, play a game or two in Los Angeles. So I think I like where Michigan sits with him, and I think stylistically it might be the best fit.
Love that. Best of both worlds for him right there. All right, Cooper, take us home with this one. 5-star wide receiver Cameron Coleman out of Phoenix City, Alabama, is part of a loaded group of pass catchers in this 2024 cycle. He's the number 21 player in the country. And of course, considering where he's from, he's looking at the Crimson Tide and Auburn Tigers, but also FSU, which is close by. So which program do you think provides him with the best fit on the field?
He doesn't have to go far, and I'm going to say Auburn because of the new coach there in Hugh Freeze. You look at what Hugh Freeze did during his time at Oxford. Think about some of these names that he had: DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Laquan Treadwell, Dante Moncrief, Evan Ingram, even though he played tight end, was a guy that was heavily involved in the passing game. And when you look at Cameron Coleman, it's a guy who needs reps. Sure, he might be a 5-star. He's within the top 32, but he only had 31 receptions for 542 yards last year. So you might be wondering, how is he a 5-star with that type of production? Well, he's an elite level athlete, had a 4.48 on the laser. He also had a 10.8 broad as well. And this is a guy with the physical makeup. This is what NFL teams are looking for. The comp at the NFL level, George Pickens with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got out of the state of Alabama, went to Georgia, and now we've seen him have some success early on in his career. So I don't think Hugh Freeze can afford to let this guy leave, but they need him early. I like the fit for Auburn. I think it makes a lot of sense for Cam Coleman as well.
All right. Thanks, Coop. Appreciate you stopping by as always. And for more from Cooper Petagna and his pal Andrew Ivins, make sure you listen to the Football Recruiting Podcast. It's every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They're breaking down the biggest storylines on the trail. You can download or listen wherever you get your pods. Hurley is our recruit of the weekend. The 4-star recruit is ranked 13th among quarterbacks in the 2024 class. The young star has passed for over 3,700 yards and 41 touchdowns in his career, leading the storied Jacksonville Trinity High School to 2 state championships. Hurley committed to LSU after receiving several offers, including from SEC rivals Georgia and Alabama. All right, Blair, so our first ever recruit of the weekend is LSU QB commit Colin Hurley. He just received an invite to the Elite 11 finals after competing in the Mississippi Regional. 24/7 Sports also named him the alpha dog of that regional. So, Blair, what stands out about his game that helped him win this prestigious invite?
Colin Hurley has one of the biggest arms in the country, a really physical kid, a strong, sturdy body type, and kind of a Dak Prescott comp, if you want to call it that. I think he's got a terrific arm talent. He could get the ball downfield. I've been able to see him this offseason twice in 7-on-7 tournaments. He shows really good vision and anticipation and can get the ball out quickly and deliver it on time. He's accurate down the field and has some really nice touch. So I really like the skill set and some of the tools that he has, the traits that he has heading into the summer. It's going to be a big summer for him because now he punches his ticket to the Elite 11 finals, and that list already includes Dylan Raiola, the #1 prospect in this class, Julian Sayin, who's headed to Alabama. You see CJ Carr, Luke Kromenhoek, and Trevor Jackson being the others that have punched their tickets to Los Angeles. And I think this gives Colin Hurley a huge opportunity to continue to prove Brian Kelly right. Remember, this was an early commitment that the LSU Tigers were able to get. I think it's obviously helped them to recruit other players like Bussy, who we just heard Cooper Petagna talk about, and he can go out to the West Coast and in a way, continue to ascend the rankings among the quarterback group, because he's got a terrific arm, like I mentioned earlier. He's got a really good anticipation skill set, and now that he's got the ability to go out and compete against some of these big names that he will be facing in the SEC in a couple years, it's going to be another really good opportunity, not only to help LSU's recruiting efforts, but then obviously to, in a way, kind of show Brian Kelly, hey, you made the right decision by making me your QB1 in this class.
All right, exciting stuff in the Bayou. I'll be excited to see him down there for years to come. Let's get to some viewer questions, shall we, Blair? And everybody, we're hanging around here for a few minutes, so get those questions in while we're here. Subscribe to the channel. That's the only way you can talk in the chat, okay? We have a question from a Tennessee fan. Honestly, guys, I thought this was supposed to be sent from a burner account, but then I saw the subject matter. So it's from Emily Proud. Hi, Emily. Hope you're having fun in Florida. Emily's asking, Tennessee runs a very up-tempo offensive system. Do you think this negatively affects their defensive recruiting since they'll have to be on the field for so many plays? That's a good one.
That could be a negative recruiting tactic, right? I think obviously if other coaches are smart, they can use that and say, hey, you don't want to go play for a defense that's going to be on the field all the time because the offense is moving so quickly. And I think that's Josh Heupel's job, is to go in there and then offset some of those rumors, or maybe offset that negative connotation that comes with being a defensive prospect that plays on a team that obviously scores a lot of points. And, I think in a way you have to just sell it and say, hey, our offense is going to be able to bail you out quite a bit, and we're going to rotate, and we're going to not have you be on the field and have so many snaps. I think that's the huge issue. It's been something that Lincoln Riley has had to battle, obviously dating back to his time at Oklahoma, where they're scoring, every minute and a half, 2 minutes, or really quick offenses, and then the defensive prospects are out and kind of, in a way, hung out to dry. So it's certainly something that I think defensive recruits have to take into consideration. But obviously Tennessee now has that opportunity to offset that and maybe not make it such a big deal to some of these defensive prospects.
It's kind of funny. Every Saturday just turns into an extra conditioning practice for them. Never thought about it that way. But all right, that's the only viewer question we're taking. Emily Proud, that is how special you are to this show. You closed it down for us. All right. Well, thanks, Blair. That's a wrap for us, everybody. We will see you back here Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. And until we see you again, keep it locked on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel and the website so you don't miss a beat. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.